Hello everyone and welcome to Python and VS Code tutorials. In this tutorial we explain a detailed explanation on Python environments in VS Code editor. VS Code editor is a very popular editor for editing Python and C++ code files, and consequently we will provide a series of tutorials explaining how to properly use VS Code for Python and C++ software development. Okay. So here's the study reference. I created this lecture on the basis of the VS Code official help available over here. First of all, let's define what is the Python environment. And here's the definition. An environment in Python is the context in which a Python program runs that consists of an interpreter and any number of installed packages. That is, we often have a Python interpreter, and besides Python interpreter, we also have a number of packages. Typical packages are NumPy, SciPy, TensorFlow, PyTorch, etc. Okay, so the whole idea is to split and to make the development of programs more easier. For example, we can have a number of different environments that have the same Python interpreter and different packages. So the main question is, where should we use this approach? Well, for example, let us assume that 10 years ago you developed a piece of code. However, this piece of code can be integrated only with Python packages that are very old. And due to some complexities, it cannot be integrated with newer packages. However, you still have to work on this old package and this old program that depends on the old packages. So what you will do, you will create a Python environment using the same interpreter, and inside of this Python environment, you will install packages that are relatively old. For example, NumPy 1.0, TensorFlow 1.4, SciPy 1.2, some other package, for example, compatible only with the above packages. And in that way, you will split your development environment. That is, you will have certain development environment where all the packages you can manually change and you can make them such that they're compatible with each other. On the other hand, for newer version of the program or for some other program that you're currently developing, you're going to use a newer version of packages. That is, you're going to use NumPy, relatively recent one, TensorFlow 1.7, SciPy 1.8, and some other packages compatible with NumPy 1.5, TensorFlow 1.7, and SciPy 1.8. And then you are going to work in that environment. So what is the same between these two environments is actually the Python interpreter. So one machine, you will not have to install 10 different versions of Python with 10 different versions of packages. No, you will have one Python development global environment, and then you will manually define and manipulate with local environments that can be used and that can be customized depending on your application. And so that's the main idea of VS Code. And that's the very good practice and suggested development practice in VS Code. That is, split your project into environments. Okay, so we have two environment types. We have a global environment and we have a local environment. So let's start with a global environment. So what is a global environment? Okay, by default, any Python interpreter installed runs in its own global environment. Keep in mind this. For example, if you just run Python or Python 3 or Py at a new terminal, of course, these commands depend how you install Python, you're running in that interpreter's global environment. So if I open a terminal right now, and if I type, for example, Python something, or I'm executing Python file, we are actually executing in that interpreter's global environment. And any package that you install or uninstall affect the global or base environment and all programs that you run within it. So if you started developing something in a global environment and you install the package, this package is for all global environments. And there is actually only a single global environment. Now, on the other hand, we have a local environment. So what is a local environment? There are two types of environments that you can create for your own workspace. There are virtual environments and there are those so-called conda environments. These environments allow you to install packages without affecting other environments, isolating your workspace package installation. So let's go back to this slide again and let's illustrate this whole idea. So here environment 1 and environment 2 are local environment. Every local environment has its own set of local packages, as you can see over here, and they're different for local environments. What is the same Python interpreter. You can even change a Python interpreter, but however, this is a more advanced thing. Okay, so this is very important to understand. So what is now virtual environment? So virtual environment is a built-in way to create an environment. A virtual environment creates a folder that contains a copy or the so-called symlink to a specific interpreter. When you install packages into a virtual environment, it will end up in this new folder, and in that way it will be isolated from other packages used by other workspace. So this is very important to keep in mind. So when you install a package into a virtual environment, it will end up in this new folder, and in that way it will be isolated from other packages used by other workspaces. So again, see over here, environment 1 can be virtual environment. It has its own folder and all the packages will be installed over there, as well as in environment 2. So environment 2 has its own folder and all the packages will be installed over here. Okay, now, so what is a conda environment? A conda environment is a Python environment that's managed using the conda package manager. So there is a way of course, creating packages creating environments using conda, or we can use the standard virtual environment by using standard Python. So there are two approaches, and keep in mind that choosing between conda and virtual environment depends on your packaging needs, team standards, development environments, previous ideas, etc. And as a final illustration of virtual environments, let's learn how to create a virtual environment, how to activate that environment, how to install packages in that environment, and how to run a simple Python code or simple Python script in that environment. So let's do that. First of all, let's open a command prompt. So click on Start and search for command prompt. Okay, so what will happen over here? I will go to my D drive, and then in my D drive I will create a folder called test1. Then I will navigate to my new folder and it's empty. This will be the base folder for my new environment. Okay, over here I need to create the environment. To create the environment I need to execute this command. The command is python-m, v is the environment, and environment1 is the name. You can change this name as you wish. However, python-m, v should stay the same. Okay, now let's be patient over here. And after a few seconds, you will see that this command is executed. Now let's look into the structure of this folder. Over here you will see environment 1. So let's go to environment 1 folder and let's look into the content of this folder. We see this very important folder called script. So let's go to that folder and let's see the structure. Okay, you have several files over here. For us, the most important file is this activate.bat. We will be executing this file in order to activate the environment. So let's go back to our base folder. Here we are, and over here let's activate the environment. To activate the environment we need to execute this command. This command is actually a relative path with the name of the file activate.bat. the relative path is from the base folder test1. So let's do this. After we executed this file, you will see that we are currently in our created environment. Okay, and over here we can run Python, we can install packages, we can do all sorts of things. Let's create a simple Python script. To do that, I will use Notepad. So write Notepad and let's call this file test1.py. It's very important that you call the file test1.py with the extension py, because since this is a Python file, every Python file should have the extension py. Okay, so let's do something over here. Let's do this. Import numpy as np. Okay, and then let's print hello world. Let's first of all define it as a string. And after that, let's define two numbers. For example, a is 2, b is 3, and c is a plus b. And let's print c. Simple as that. Let's save this file, close it. Next, let's run this file. To run this file, we need to type Python and the name of the file. The name of the file is test.py. Okay, and what's happening over here? We can see a trace back. We can see that import numpy as np, there is an error doing this, no module named numpy. So why is that? Well, when we created this new and virtual environment, we are just using basic Python without additional packages. That is, numpy is not installed. So the first step we will do is to install numpy inside of our virtual environment. To do that, we need to type pip install numpy. And here you have to be patient, since we will install numpy. And here it is. Okay, now let's try to run this file again. Python test1.py, and let's see the output. And here it is. Hello world works perfectly. Now we installed numpy inside of this virtual environment, and we have a specific version of numpy inside of this virtual environment. This version of numpy is not installed in a global environment, it's only installed locally, and this is very important. To exit the environment, we will just type deactivate, and that's it. And we are out. And here it is. Now let's try to do this. Python test1.py. We will still be able to execute this file, and this is because in our global environment, which we are currently calling, numpy is installed. This is very important. This Python command is actually not executed from the local environment, it's executed from the global environment. And in my global environment, I already installed numpy.